Liberia's House of Representatives in crisis, arson allegations, fuel political chaos. Welcome back to the Bold African Voice, BAV, where we analyze the top political stories and issues shaping Africa today. I'm Abdul Karim Kargbo, born and raised in Africa. In this episode, we take a closer look at the escalating crisis in Liberia's House of Representatives. Allegations of arson and a bitter leadership struggle are rocking the nation's political scene. Stay tuned as we break down the details, compare this crisis with similar political upheavals across Africa, and look forward to what the future might hold for Liberia's governance. The political landscape of Liberia has been significantly disrupted by a leadership crisis within the House of Representatives, culminating in a devastating fire at the Capitol building on December 18, 2024. This incident has not only intensified political tensions but also raised serious questions about the integrity of the nation's democratic institutions. The leadership crisis. Since October 2024, Liberia's House of Representatives has been embroiled in a leadership dispute between two factions. 1. The Reform Bloc, comprising members who have accused Speaker Fonati Koffa of mismanagement and corruption. This group has been advocating for his removal. They argue that Koffa's leadership has been marked by poor management and questionable actions, leading to a call for his ouster. 2. The Majority Bloc, led by Representative Richard Kuhn. This faction has positioned itself as the legitimate leadership of the House, following the removal of Speaker Koffa. However, their actions have been criticized as a display of majority tyranny, with the Press Union of Liberia expressing grave concern over the ongoing leadership crisis. The impasse has led to legislative deadlock, hindering the passage of critical national budgets and legislation, thereby affecting the governance and stability of Liberia. The Capitol building fire. On December 18, 2024, the Capitol building, the seat of Liberia's legislature, was engulfed in flames. The Liberia National Police, LNP, confirmed that the fire was a deliberate act of arson. Investigations have identified several individuals from Koffa's camp as persons of interest, including Representatives Dixon Sibo, Marvin Cole, Frank Foko, Priscilla Cooper, Abu Kamara, and Jacob C. Deby. Some of these individuals have been accused of making inflammatory and threatening statements since the leadership saga began. The fire has caused extensive damage to the legislative chambers, further exacerbating the political crisis and raising concerns about the safety and security of government institutions. Critical analysis. The arson attack on the Capitol building represents a significant escalation in Liberia's political crisis. It underscores the deep-seated divisions within the House of Representatives and highlights the lengths to which some factions may go to assert control. The involvement of individuals from Koffa's camp in the arson investigation casts a shadow over the integrity of the leadership struggle and raises questions about the use of violence in political disputes. The international community has expressed concern over the situation. The Press Union of Liberia has condemned the leadership crisis, describing it as a blatant display of both majority and minority tyranny. The inability of the two factions to reconcile their differences, even after a decisive Supreme Court ruling, underscores a troubling disregard for the rule of law and the principles of governance. Africa-wide comparison. Liberia's political turmoil mirrors challenges faced by other African nations, where leadership disputes have led to institutional instability. For instance, in South Sudan, prolonged political infighting has resulted in civil unrest and humanitarian crises. Similarly, in Zimbabwe, political tensions have often manifested in violent confrontations and economic decline. These situations highlight the critical need for robust democratic institutions and conflict resolution mechanisms to prevent political disputes from escalating into violence. Forward-looking approach. To address the current crisis and prevent future occurrences, several steps are essential. 1. Independent investigation. A transparent and impartial investigation into the arson attack is crucial. Engaging international partners can help ensure credibility and prevent political interference. 2. Mediation and dialogue. Facilitated dialogue between the conflicting factions, possibly with the assistance of regional organizations like ECOWAS, can help resolve the leadership dispute and restore legislative functions. 3. Institutional reforms. Strengthening the legislative framework to prevent such crises in the future is vital. This includes clear procedures for leadership succession, and conflict resolution mechanisms within the House of Representatives. 4. Public engagement. Engaging the public in the political process and ensuring transparency can rebuild trust in democratic institutions and discourage the use of violence in political disputes. Latest developments. As of January 24, 2025, the Supreme Court of Liberia is expected to deliver a ruling on the legality of the actions taken by the Majority Bloc in removing Speaker Koffa. This decision will have significant implications for the future leadership of the House and the resolution of the ongoing crisis. In the meantime, the House remains in a state of paralysis, with critical legislative functions suspended. The international community continues to monitor the situation closely, urging all parties to engage in dialogue and uphold the rule of law. The path forward, a critical moment for Liberia's democracy. As the crisis within the House of Representatives continues to unfold, the ramifications for Liberia's democratic framework become more evident. The need for a transparent, inclusive approach to resolve the conflict is critical to maintaining the integrity of the nation's governance structures. However, as history has shown across the African continent, the path to democratic stability is often fraught with challenges, particularly in the face of institutional crises and political polarization. The role of international partners. Considering the mounting tensions and potential for further escalation, Liberia's leadership must consider engaging with international partners for assistance. While Speaker Koffa's call for international oversight is a step in the right direction, it is crucial that the international community is involved in a way that supports the rule of law, strengthens Liberia's democratic institutions, and prevents any undue political interference. Regional organizations such as ECOWAS, Economic Community of West African States, have played an instrumental role in mediating political crises across the continent. The ability of ECOWAS to bring together warring factions and provide a neutral space for dialogue has been demonstrated in previous situations, such as the political standoff in Guinea and the civil unrest in Côte d'Ivoire. ECOWAS's involvement could be a key element in helping Liberia find a peaceful resolution, ensuring that both sides are heard and that a solution is reached that upholds the democratic process. Moreover, the United Nations and other international bodies can provide technical assistance and ensure that the investigation into the arson is conducted with complete transparency. Given the accusations against Koffa's camp and the ongoing political stalemate, external oversight could play an important role in ensuring that any potential political manipulation does not influence the investigation's outcome. Strengthening Liberia's institutions. Beyond resolving the immediate leadership crisis, Liberia must also look ahead to strengthening its democratic institutions to prevent similar events from occurring in the future. This includes the establishment of robust legal frameworks that clearly define leadership succession, conflict resolution, and the conduct of lawmakers. Institutions such as the National Election Commission, NEC, and the Liberia National Police, LNP, must also be empowered with the necessary resources to investigate and address such incidents effectively, without political pressure. Liberia's political system, like many other African nations, is still maturing. The country has made strides since the end of its civil war in 2003, but the events of the past few months suggest that there are still vulnerabilities within its political and judicial systems that need to be addressed. Strengthening the capacity of democratic institutions to handle internal disputes, investigate criminal activity, and ensure transparency is key to fostering long-term stability. Lessons from other African nations. The situation in Liberia is not unique to the country. Throughout Africa, political leadership crises have often been accompanied by violence and criminality, as competing factions seek to maintain or seize power. In Zimbabwe, the power struggles between political leaders and their parties have sometimes resulted in violent confrontations and suppression of political dissent. Similarly, South Sudan has faced a protracted civil conflict driven by factionalism, undermining both governance and the trust of its citizens. Liberia can learn from these examples. The aftermath of such crises in other African countries has often left lasting scars, making it harder for citizens to trust their political leaders and institutions. To avoid this, Liberia must seek a path of peaceful resolution that respects the rule of law and the rights of all citizens. The international community, as well as local actors, should prioritize dialogue and mediation over escalation and violence. Furthermore, the engagement of civil society groups, community leaders, and youth organizations in these processes is essential. These groups often have valuable perspectives on how the crisis is affecting the broader population and can help ensure that solutions address the needs and concerns of everyday Liberians. The political fallout, a nation on edge. The repercussions of the Capitol fire and the ongoing leadership battle are already being felt beyond the walls of the House of Representatives. The public's trust in Liberia's democratic institutions is at a precarious point. For many Liberians, the events of December 2024 and the subsequent investigation represent a failure of governance, with both political factions seen as more interested in power struggles than in addressing the needs of the people. The political fallout from these events extends beyond the House of Representatives and will likely influence future elections. The CDC-led government under President George Weah is under increasing pressure to act decisively, ensure accountability, and prevent further destabilization. The way the government responds to this crisis will either bolster or undermine its credibility. If the investigation into the arson attack is perceived as biased or incomplete, it could fuel further discontent and distrust in the government's ability to lead the country through this turbulent period. A unified call for justice and accountability. One of the primary concerns that has emerged from this situation is the need for justice. The arson attack, if connected to political maneuvering, represents a significant threat to Liberia's democratic process. The investigation must be thorough, impartial, and transparent to ensure that those responsible are held accountable, regardless of their political affiliations. The public's faith in the rule of law must be restored, and for that to happen, the government must show unwavering commitment to an unbiased inquiry. Moreover, this crisis has highlighted the need for comprehensive electoral reforms that address the internal functioning of the legislature. These reforms should focus on improving the conduct of lawmakers, ensuring that they act in the best interests of the country and not just in pursuit of personal or political power. The road ahead. Can Liberia heal? As Liberia grapples with the aftermath of the fire and the ongoing political crisis, the question of how the country can heal remains. The internal divisions that have emerged within the House of Representatives are a reflection of deeper issues within the political system. While the country has made significant progress in rebuilding after the Civil War, the path to sustained peace and stability requires addressing the root causes of political instability. This includes tackling corruption, strengthening democratic processes, and ensuring that all citizens have a voice in the nation's political discourse. For Liberia to emerge from this crisis stronger and more unified, the focus must be on building trust, fostering political collaboration, and ensuring that the rule of law is upheld. A new beginning or more division. In the coming weeks, as the investigation progresses and the political parties decide their next steps, Liberia stands at a crossroads. The leadership crisis, sparked by personal ambitions and compounded by violence, has brought the nation to the brink. How the government, the House of Representatives, and the public respond to this crisis will determine whether Liberia takes a step forward toward political maturity or slides further into division and instability. While the outcome remains uncertain, what is clear is that the decisions made now will shape Liberia's future for years to come. The country has the potential to overcome this crisis, but it will require transparency, accountability, and a commitment to democratic principles. Whether Liberia can rise to the challenge and ensure that the lessons learned from this episode are applied to prevent future crises remains to be seen. Shifting public perception, trust in Liberia's democracy. The unfolding political crisis has also stirred public sentiment in Liberia. The recent arson attack on the capital, coupled with the ongoing leadership impasse, has amplified concerns about the integrity of the country's democratic system. Many Liberians are beginning to question whether their elected representatives are truly serving the interests of the people or merely playing power games at the expense of national progress. Public trust in the leadership of both Speaker Koffa and the Majority Bloc is waning. The constant infighting, coupled with the ongoing police investigation, paints a picture of a political establishment that is deeply divided and increasingly disconnected from the needs of ordinary citizens. Liberians are watching closely to see how this crisis is resolved, with many hoping for a swift and fair resolution to restore stability and allow the legislative process to function once again. The role of the media in shaping the narrative. The media in Liberia plays a crucial role in shaping the public's understanding of the crisis and influencing how the situation evolves. While many news outlets have reported on the leadership dispute and the fire, the manner in which they cover the investigation into the arson will be crucial. Media outlets must be diligent in their reporting, ensuring that the facts are presented without bias and that both sides of the political divide are given a platform. Furthermore, the media must advocate for transparency and accountability throughout the investigation. Given the high stakes, it is essential that journalists continue to hold those in power to account, pressing for a fair and impartial process. The media's role in fostering public dialogue and providing balanced coverage can be a powerful tool in preventing further polarization and encouraging dialogue between the warring factions. Implications for Liberia's international relationships. The ongoing crisis also has implications for Liberia's standing on the international stage. As the investigation into the Capitol fire and the leadership crisis continues, Liberia's foreign relations may be affected. International partners and donors, particularly those from the West and regional organizations, are closely monitoring the situation, as political instability often has broader economic consequences. Countries and international bodies that have been supportive of Liberia's post-conflict recovery may now reconsider their level of engagement. The European Union, the United States, and other key partners could become less inclined to offer financial assistance or diplomatic support if they perceive the crisis as a sign of systemic governance failures. This, in turn, could have a negative impact on Liberia's economy and its ability to address pressing developmental challenges. International investors may hesitate to invest in Liberia's growing economy if the political environment is perceived as volatile. The country's ability to attract foreign aid, as well as investments in infrastructure and key sectors like health, education, and agriculture, will depend on the resolution of this crisis and the restoration of trust in its democratic processes. Looking to the future, a test for Liberia's leadership. As Liberia moves forward, this crisis will be a defining moment for the nation's leadership. How the government and lawmakers handle the investigation and resolve the conflict will set the tone for the future of Liberia's democracy. This is a crucial moment not just for the political elite, but for every Liberian who has a stake in the future of the country. President George Weah's government must demonstrate strong leadership, not just in resolving the political deadlock, but in ensuring that such crises are less likely to occur in the future. The government can prove that Liberia's institutions can handle internal conflict without resorting to violence or criminal acts. By supporting an impartial investigation and promoting dialogue, President Weah can set a precedent for future generations of Liberians, showing that democracy can be strengthened even in the face of adversity. A critical juncture for Liberia's political culture. This crisis also raises important questions about the political culture in Liberia. As the country continues to navigate its post-Civil War recovery, it must find ways to bridge the political divide and foster a culture of collaboration. The entrenched factionalism that has characterized recent political struggles, from the House of Representatives to the executive branch, signals a deeper issue within the political landscape that must be addressed. To prevent future crises, Liberia needs to invest in political education and civic engagement, ensuring that all political actors, including lawmakers, understand the principles of democracy and governance is essential for long-term stability. By nurturing a culture of accountability and respect for democratic norms, Liberia can reduce the risk of power struggles undermining the functioning of its government. Learning from Liberia's history, a call for unity. Liberia's history, from its founding to its civil war, is marked by cycles of division and reconciliation. The country's ability to move forward will depend on its leaders' ability to reflect on these lessons. The current crisis should serve as a reminder of the consequences of unchecked political power and the importance of collaboration, compromise, and respect for the rule of law. Liberians must recognize that their future is closely tied to the strength and stability of their democratic institutions. It is not enough for political leaders to win power. They must work to build a nation that benefits all its citizens, regardless of their political affiliation. The leadership crisis in the House of Representatives should serve as an opportunity for reflection and a chance to rebuild Liberia's democratic culture. The role of the international community in supporting Liberia. As Liberia navigates this crisis, It will be crucial for the international community to continue providing support, but in a way that empowers Liberia to resolve its own challenges. International assistance must be focused on strengthening democratic governance, improving transparency, and enhancing the rule of law. Liberia has made significant strides since the end of its civil war, and it is essential that the international community continues to back the country in its efforts to build a stable and democratic society. International bodies such as ECOWAS, the African Union, and the United Nations must continue to engage with Liberia, offering support for dialogue and conflict resolution. By helping Liberia strengthen its institutions and promote democratic reforms, the international community can play a pivotal role in ensuring that the current crisis does not become a setback for the country's development. A moment of reckoning for Liberia. The outcome of this crisis will not only define the future of the House of Representatives but also shape the future trajectory of Liberia's political development. As the investigation into the Capitol fire unfolds and political leaders begin to take stock of the situation, the pressure will be on to make decisions that can either heal the country's wounds or deepen its divisions. Liberians are at a critical juncture, one that will determine whether the country can move beyond this crisis and emerge stronger, or whether it will fall into a cycle of political instability that undermines its democratic progress. The lessons learned from this episode must be applied to build a more resilient political system, one that values transparency, accountability, and the welfare of all its citizens. For now, the nation waits with bated breath to see how its leaders will act. Will Liberia emerge from this crisis with renewed commitment to democratic governance, or will it fall deeper into a period of political paralysis and division? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain: the decisions made today will have lasting repercussions for the future of Liberia's democracy. The role of youth in shaping Liberia's political future. During this crisis, Liberia's youth have become an increasingly important voice in the national discourse. Young people who are the future of the nation are beginning to recognize the power they hold in shaping the political direction of the country. The apathy that once plagued Liberia's younger generation in political matters is slowly being replaced with a growing sense of political engagement and activism. The current crisis in the House of Representatives presents an opportunity for youth leaders to step forward and demand a more transparent, accountable, and democratic governance system. Liberian youth have historically been at the forefront of social and political movements in the country, and their influence continues to grow. The political impasse between Speaker Koffa and the Majority Bloc presents a platform for young people to organize and advocate for reforms that could help prevent such crises in the future. Whether through grassroots movements, social media campaigns, or participation in civil society organizations, the youth can play a pivotal role in holding the political elite accountable and pushing for reforms that will benefit the nation. Addressing Liberia's socio-economic challenges amidst political uncertainty. While the political crisis in Liberia occupies the public's attention, the country's socio-economic challenges remain pressing. The political turmoil and violence stemming from the leadership dispute have taken a toll on Liberia's fragile economy, which has yet to fully recover from the effects of the civil war and the Ebola epidemic. The economic fallout from political instability could lead to job losses, diminished foreign investments, and weakened public services that disproportionately affect the most vulnerable populations in Liberia. Given the political uncertainty, there are concerns that attention to pressing issues such as unemployment, poverty, healthcare, and infrastructure development could be sidelined. The youth, in particular, face an uncertain future in terms of employment opportunities. A breakdown in governance could further exacerbate the high levels of youth unemployment, which already threatens to undermine Liberia's long-term stability. It is essential that the country's political leaders recognize that their infighting not only erodes trust in governance, but also detracts from the urgent need to address these socio-economic challenges. International financial support for Liberia's economic recovery efforts has been crucial, but with ongoing political unrest, the willingness of the international community to provide aid and investment could dwindle. As such, the leadership crisis may lead to even greater challenges in securing much-needed economic assistance, which is vital for the country's development. For Liberia to recover and thrive, it is paramount that political stability is restored, and a collective focus is placed on improving the lives of ordinary Liberians. The importance of national unity and reconciliation. In many ways, Liberia's current political crisis reflects the deep divisions that persist within its society. Factionalism in the House of Representatives mirrors a broader national divide that is often characterized by political, regional, and ethnic tensions. These divisions are not new. They have plagued the country for decades, and Liberia cannot move forward without addressing the underlying sources of division. The need for national unity and reconciliation cannot be overstated. The leadership impasse in the House has revealed how deeply divided the political class is, but it also offers an opportunity for the country to reflect on the importance of unity in the face of adversity. This crisis could serve as a turning point if the political elite, civil society, and the public at large can engage in meaningful dialogue and work toward a shared vision for Liberia's future. Reconciliation efforts must focus on healing the wounds of the past while building a future that is inclusive of all Liberians. The legacy of the Civil War and the deep-rooted ethnic, regional, and political divides must be confronted head-on if the country is to move toward sustainable peace and development. A national dialogue, facilitated by neutral parties such as religious leaders, civil society groups, and international mediators, could provide the foundation for addressing these issues in a manner that promotes understanding and cooperation, empowering Liberia's legislative body for future crises. While the current crisis is centered around the House of Representatives, it highlights a deeper issue with Liberia's legislative process and political institutions. The power struggle between Speaker Koffa and the Majority Bloc raises important questions about the accountability and effectiveness of the legislature itself. It is evident that Liberia's political system, despite its strides since the Civil War, still lacks the institutional maturity needed to resolve internal disputes without resorting to violence or criminal behavior. One of the key takeaways from this crisis is the need to empower the House of Representatives with a more robust framework for conflict resolution. This could involve establishing clear, legally binding procedures for leadership succession, ensuring that the legislature has mechanisms in place to address disputes without disrupting the functioning of government. The establishment of an independent body to handle internal grievances and investigate corruption could go a long way toward promoting transparency and accountability within the legislative body. Additionally, the relationship between the executive and legislative branches in Liberia needs to be reevaluated. A more collaborative approach between the two branches of government, with a focus on shared governance and mutual respect, would help to mitigate the type of tensions that have led to the current impasse. Strengthening the checks and balances within Liberia's government could be key to preventing similar crises from arising in the future. The regional context. Lessons from West Africa. Liberia's crisis should also be viewed in the broader context of political instability in West Africa. The region has witnessed several similar crises in recent years, where power struggles and political infighting have threatened the stability of nations. In countries such as Guinea, Mali, and Côte d'Ivoire, leadership disputes have led to violent confrontations, civil unrest, and the breakdown of democratic institutions. The lessons learned from these regional crises are clear. Leadership disputes must be handled with caution, respect for democratic processes, and a commitment to dialogue and peaceful resolution. Liberia can draw inspiration from countries like Ghana and Senegal, where political transitions have largely been peaceful and transparent, even in the face of intense electoral competition. These nations have built strong democratic institutions that prioritize the rule of law, transparency, and peaceful conflict resolution. By adopting the best practices from successful democracies in the region and learning from the mistakes of neighboring countries, Liberia can chart a path forward that promotes stability, unity, and long-term peace. The next steps. A call for action. As the situation in Liberia continues to evolve, the next steps will be crucial. The House of Representatives must come together to resolve their leadership crisis and return to the business of governance. The Majority Bloc and Speaker Koffa's camp must put aside their differences and prioritize the needs of the nation over personal or political ambitions. In doing so, they can send a powerful message of unity and commitment to Liberia's democratic future. Furthermore, the government must ensure that the investigation into the arson attack is thorough, impartial, and free from political interference. Justice must be served to all those responsible for the fire, and Liberia's institutions must emerge from this crisis stronger and more resilient. For Liberia to heal, it will need to engage in national dialogue, empower its institutions, and focus on building a future that is inclusive of all its people. The decisions made in the coming weeks and months will define Liberia's trajectory for years to come, and the nation must seize this opportunity to rebuild its democracy and strengthen its institutions. The road to peace, stability, and prosperity is long, but with the right leadership, Liberia can overcome this crisis and emerge as a beacon of democracy in West Africa. The next chapter in Liberia's political history is still being written, and it is up to its leaders, citizens, and international partners to ensure that it is one of progress and hope. The role of civil society in Liberia's Democratic Rebirth civil society organizations, CSOs, have long played a crucial role in Liberia's political landscape, especially in times of crisis. Given the current impasse and the underlying tensions in the House of Representatives, CSOs must take an active role in advocating for political reform, transparency, and reconciliation. These organizations have the power to mobilize citizens, raise awareness about the importance of democratic processes, and push for accountability at all levels of government. During Liberia's civil war and subsequent recovery, CSOs helped fill the gap left by weakened government institutions, advocating for peace, human rights, and the rebuilding of the nation. Today, they remain essential in ensuring that the voices of ordinary Liberians are heard and that the government remains responsive to their needs. As the nation faces this current political crisis, CSOs have an opportunity to continue their advocacy work, pushing for the restoration of order, the strengthening of democratic institutions, and the resolution of the political feud in the House. These organizations can also serve as watchdogs, ensuring that the investigation into the Capitol fire is not only transparent, but also fair and independent. By holding the government accountable and ensuring that the justice system operates without bias, CSOs can help restore public faith in Liberia's ability to address political challenges through legal and peaceful means. The international community, balancing support and sovereignty. While international support is crucial in helping Liberia navigate through this crisis, it is equally important that external involvement respects the country's sovereignty. Liberia has been historically reliant on international aid and support, particularly in the aftermath of its civil war. However, there is a delicate balance between offering help and respecting the nation's autonomy in resolving its internal issues. The international community, especially international organizations like the United Nations, ECOWAS, and the African Union, must tread carefully, ensuring that they provide the necessary support without undermining Liberia's ability to manage its own affairs. Liberia's leadership, including President George Weah, should be empowered to resolve the issue internally, but with guidance and encouragement from international bodies. The international community's role should be to provide technical expertise, facilitate dialogue, and support Liberia's efforts to strengthen its institutions. This approach will help Liberia retain ownership over its political future, while also benefiting from the best practices and lessons learned from other nations' experiences. Political reforms, strengthening Liberia's electoral process. One key area for reform that has emerged from the current crisis is Liberia's electoral process and its legislative framework. The ongoing power struggles within the House of Representatives, which culminated in the Capitol fire, highlight deep-rooted weaknesses in the system that need to be addressed. The political infighting and lack of institutional checks and balances point to a need for comprehensive reforms aimed at ensuring that the legislature operates with transparency, fairness, and accountability. Electoral reforms should include clearer guidelines on leadership succession within the legislature, with well-defined procedures for resolving disputes and preventing the abuse of power. It is also vital that Liberia invests in strengthening its electoral commission to oversee free, fair, and credible elections. The current crisis is a reminder of the importance of a robust electoral system that is not only capable of organizing elections, but also of dealing with post-election disputes in a way that upholds the rule of law and the democratic process. In addition to electoral reforms, Liberia should also focus on creating a more inclusive political environment where all citizens, regardless of their political affiliations, can participate in the decision-making process. This could involve creating space for opposition parties and civil society organizations to engage meaningfully in the political dialogue, ensuring that Liberia's democracy is truly representative of the people it serves. The potential for reconciliation and national healing. While the political turmoil has left many Liberians feeling disillusioned, the current crisis presents an opportunity for national healing. If managed correctly, this conflict could be the catalyst for much-needed political reconciliation and the strengthening of Liberia's democratic institutions. For this to happen, it is crucial that the political factions involved take a step back from their pursuit of power and focus on the bigger picture, the well-being of the nation, and the future of Liberia's democracy. Reconciliation is not simply a matter of political negotiations, it must also be rooted in a shared vision for the future. Liberians, across political and ethnic lines, need to come together to forge a common understanding of what it means to be a unified nation. This could be achieved through national dialogues, which could include discussions about the country's political culture, historical injustices, and the role of youth and women in shaping the future. The reconciliation process must also extend to addressing Liberia's economic and social challenges. Many Liberians still struggle with poverty, unemployment, and lack of access to essential services. The political class must recognize that resolving political infighting is only one part of the equation. True reconciliation requires an equal focus on improving the lives of ordinary citizens. Youth empowerment, a key to Liberia's political future. The youth demographic in Liberia is particularly significant in this context. They represent not only the future of the country, but also a crucial force for change in the present. Given the high rates of youth unemployment and the challenges young people face in accessing education and opportunities, the current crisis provides an opening for youth-led initiatives that can contribute to reshaping Liberia's political landscape. Young people in Liberia are increasingly using social media as a platform to express their political views, mobilize for social causes, and demand accountability from their leaders. This growing political awareness among Liberia's youth presents an opportunity to build a more engaged electorate and encourage active participation in the political process. If Liberia's leaders can harness the energy and creativity of its young people, the country could experience a democratic revitalization that is more inclusive, transparent, and responsive to the needs of its citizens. The government should invest in initiatives that empower the youth to take on leadership roles, not just in politics, but also in business, civil society, and media sectors. By providing young people with the tools they need to succeed, Liberia can build a future generation of leaders who are committed to improving the country and who can move the nation beyond its current political challenges. Liberia's test of democracy. The events unfolding in Liberia are a stark reminder of the fragility of democracy and the importance of robust institutions. The current political crisis, sparked by infighting within the House of Representatives, highlights the risks associated with weak political structures and the consequences of power struggles that prioritize individual interests over the common good. As Liberia moves through this tumultuous period, it must take the opportunity to reflect on the lessons of the past and work toward a more stable, transparent, and accountable governance system. This is a critical moment for Liberia, and the decisions made now will shape the country's political future for generations to come. To navigate through this crisis, Liberia needs the full cooperation of its political leaders, civil society, youth, and the international community. It is only through collaboration, dialogue, and a commitment to democratic values that Liberia will overcome its current challenges and move toward a more unified and prosperous future. The path forward is fraught with challenges, but it also presents an opportunity for Liberia to redefine its democracy, strengthen its institutions, and secure a brighter future for its citizens. How Liberia's leaders respond to this crisis will determine whether the country can turn the page on this chapter of political instability, or whether it will slip further into division and dysfunction. Only time will tell, but Liberia must choose the path of healing, reconciliation, and progress. Building consensus, a national dialogue for Liberia's future. As Liberia's political crisis persists, one of the most critical steps toward resolution will be fostering a national dialogue that includes all political factions, civil society groups, youth organizations, and ordinary citizens. National dialogues have proven to be successful in other African nations, such as South Africa during its transition from apartheid, and more recently in Côte d'Ivoire, where political dialogue helped avert further violence after contentious elections. A comprehensive national dialogue could address several key issues plaguing Liberia's political system, including corruption, governance structures, electoral reforms, and the role of opposition parties. It would provide a platform for stakeholders to not only discuss political differences, but also outline a shared vision for the future of the nation. Through such dialogues, the Liberian people can hold their leaders accountable and demand a more transparent, inclusive, and fair system of governance. The leadership in Liberia must be open to these discussions, as the legitimacy of any solution will depend on the buy-in from all sectors of society. For this to work, the dialogue must be inclusive, non-violent, and well-facilitated, with trusted mediators guiding the process. It must also be seen as genuine, rather than just a political maneuver by entrenched elites looking to preserve their power. A successful dialogue can pave the way for reconciliation, build public trust in the political process, and lead to long-term institutional reforms. Addressing regional tensions in Liberia's political landscape. Liberia's current crisis is compounded by regional and ethnic tensions that have often been at the heart of the country's political struggles. Liberia, like many African countries, has diverse ethnic groups, and these differences have, at times, been used by political leaders to rally support. However, the manipulation of ethnic identity for political gain only deepens divisions and makes national unity more difficult to achieve. In the current situation, Liberia's political factions have largely aligned along regional lines, with Speaker Koffa's supporters largely from the southwestern region, and Speaker Kun's bloc drawing support from the central and southeastern areas. These regional alignments have intensified the political battle and turned the leadership dispute into a broader contest for political dominance. It is imperative for Liberia's political leadership to recognize the risks of regional and ethnic fragmentation. Political parties and lawmakers must rise above these divisions and focus on the larger objective of building a united nation. National unity cannot be achieved if the political elite continues to exploit regional and ethnic sentiments to fuel their power struggles. Through education, dialogue, and policies that promote social cohesion, Liberia can begin to heal these regional divides and build a political culture based on shared interests and values, rather than division. Strengthening Liberia's legal framework to prevent future crises. Another critical lesson from this ongoing crisis is the need for stronger legal frameworks to prevent future political instability. Liberia's current system is not immune to manipulation and exploitation by power-hungry politicians, which is evident in the arson attack and the persistent deadlock in the legislature. The legal system in Liberia must be reformed to include stricter accountability measures for public officials, particularly lawmakers. The investigation into the Capitol fire is an opportunity to overhaul how Liberia handles political corruption, conflicts of interest, and unlawful conduct by public officials. An independent body should be established to monitor the actions of lawmakers and other government officials to ensure they adhere to ethical and legal standards. Additionally, the country's electoral laws need to be reformed to establish clear procedures for handling leadership disputes, including the power to remove and replace elected officials if necessary. These reforms would help to ensure that leadership crises are resolved in a constitutional and peaceful manner, rather than through violent protests, physical confrontations, or sabotage. By establishing these safeguards, Liberia can reduce the chances of future political crises and create a system that is more resilient to internal power struggles. The role of international institutions in stabilizing Liberia. International institutions such as ECOWAS, the African Union, AU, and the United Nations, UN, have long played an essential role in stabilizing African nations experiencing political turmoil. For Liberia, the involvement of these organizations will be crucial in both mediating the current crisis and supporting long-term reforms. ECOWAS has already demonstrated its potential for peacemaking in West Africa, intervening in countries such as Guinea, Mali, and Burkina Faso to facilitate political transitions and prevent conflicts. ECOWAS could play a key role in Liberia by offering technical support for institutional reforms, helping to broker peace between the warring political factions, and providing monitoring assistance during elections. Additionally, ECOWAS can hold Liberia accountable by ensuring that the leadership crisis is resolved through democratic means, preventing any further descent into authoritarianism or violence. The AU and the UN also have critical roles to play in Liberia's recovery. The AU, with its focus on promoting democracy and stability across the continent, could help guide Liberia through a process of constitutional reform and reconciliation. Meanwhile, the UN can provide technical support in areas such as electoral reform, governance, and human rights protections. These institutions can also play a vital role in encouraging international financial support for Liberia's economic recovery once political stability is restored. Rebuilding trust, a shared responsibility. At this juncture, rebuilding trust between Liberia's government and its citizens must be a shared responsibility. Public confidence in the political system has been deeply eroded by the recent leadership crisis, the arson attack on the capital, and the ongoing infighting. Liberians need to see concrete actions from their leaders that demonstrate a commitment to transparency, justice, and democratic values. Political leaders must prioritize restoring confidence in Liberia's democratic institutions. They must avoid the temptation to prioritize personal or partisan interests over the well-being of the nation. In particular, the leadership must ensure that the investigation into the Capitol fire is transparent and fair, without interference from political actors. The justice system must be allowed to operate freely, and all those found responsible for the fire must be held accountable, regardless of their political affiliations. The public also has a role to play in rebuilding trust. Citizens must demand accountability from their leaders, but they must also engage constructively in the political process. Civil society organizations, the media, and the youth have a crucial role in holding the government accountable and pushing for the necessary reforms to prevent such crises in the future. A pivotal moment for Liberia's democracy. As Liberia navigates its current political crisis, it stands at a pivotal moment in its democratic development. The outcome of the ongoing power struggle in the House of Representatives, along with the investigation into the Capitol fire, will shape Liberia's political future for years to come. The decisions made by Liberia's leaders, civil society, and international partners will determine whether the country emerges from this crisis stronger, with a renewed commitment to democracy, or whether it will continue to face instability and division. For Liberia to move forward, the political elite must prioritize the nation's interests over personal power. Transparency, accountability, and collaboration are the keys to restoring public trust and building a more robust, democratic system. Through national dialogue, institutional reforms, and a focus on unity, Liberia can overcome this crisis and emerge as a model of democratic resilience in West Africa. Liberia's path to healing will require the collective effort of all its citizens and political leaders. The road ahead is challenging, but the opportunity for renewal is within reach. If Liberia can turn this crisis into an opportunity for reform, dialogue, and national healing, it will prove that even in the most difficult of times, democracy can be the foundation upon which the future is built. The role of Liberia's diaspora in national reconciliation. Another vital resource in Liberia's path toward healing and stability is its diaspora. The Liberian diaspora, particularly in the United States, Europe, and other parts of West Africa, has long been an integral part of the country's development. Members of the diaspora have made significant contributions through remittances, business investments, and advocacy for Liberia's well-being on the global stage. In this crisis, the diaspora could play an instrumental role in encouraging dialogue and reconciliation. With their deep knowledge of both Liberia's challenges and the solutions applied in other democratic nations, members of the diaspora could offer crucial perspectives on how to resolve the political deadlock. They can also act as intermediaries between Liberia's political factions, helping to mediate discussions and build bridges across political divides. Moreover, the diaspora can assist in pushing for international support for Liberia's democratic reforms. They can advocate for the country's needs in the international arena, leveraging their networks to attract investments, foreign aid, and technical assistance that could help stabilize the economy and promote peace. A united diaspora, working in tandem with civil society groups and the international community, can amplify Liberia's voice and strengthen its position in the global community. The importance of transparency in Liberia's governance. One of the key lessons to be learned from Liberia's current crisis is the absolute necessity of transparency in governance. The investigation into the arson attack has already exposed gaps in public trust, with many Liberians questioning whether those in power are truly working in the public's best interest. Whether the arson was politically motivated or a result of internal power struggles, the inability of the political elite to resolve their differences without resorting to violence highlights the lack of transparent processes within Liberia's institutions. Restoring public trust requires a commitment to transparency in every aspect of governance. This includes the legislative process, the justice system, and even the handling of public finances. The Liberian government must put in place stronger mechanisms for oversight and accountability, ensuring that both elected officials and public servants are held to high ethical standards. Independent bodies with the authority to investigate corruption, hold leaders accountable, and ensure fair political processes will be essential for creating a more robust democratic system. Furthermore, transparency is critical not only in political matters, but also in how the government handles issues such as economic recovery, healthcare, and education. For Liberia to heal, its citizens must feel that their leaders are acting with honesty and integrity, using public resources to serve the collective good. Transparent governance can rebuild the trust that has been eroded by years of mismanagement, corruption, and political instability. Political stability as a prerequisite for economic growth. Liberia's economic prospects are inextricably linked to the stability of its political system. A strong, stable, and democratic government is essential for fostering an environment conducive to economic growth and development. The ongoing political turmoil in the House of Representatives is preventing the passage of critical budgets and economic policies, which could delay infrastructure projects, hinder the delivery of public services, and discourage foreign investment. For Liberia to thrive economically, political stability must be restored. Investors, both domestic and foreign, are reluctant to invest in a country where the political environment is unstable and unpredictable. The nation's businesses, both large and small, are struggling to operate under the uncertainty created by the ongoing crisis. Furthermore, Liberia's youth, who have the potential to drive the economy forward, face high levels of unemployment and limited opportunities, which could worsen if the political situation is not addressed. Economic growth requires a steady hand in governance, clear policy direction, and the rule of law. A stable political environment will help attract investment, both in traditional sectors such as mining and agriculture, and in emerging sectors like technology and innovation. As the government works to resolve the current crisis, it must prioritize policies that encourage economic growth, create jobs, and improve living standards for the most vulnerable segments of society. Liberia's education and healthcare systems, pillars for long-term development. While political and economic stability are essential, Liberia must also focus on the long-term development of its education and healthcare systems. The current political crisis has overshadowed the need for greater investment in these areas, but without significant improvements in education and healthcare, Liberia's future prospects remain dim. The education system in Liberia faces numerous challenges, including a lack of access to quality education in rural areas, outdated curricula, and insufficient funding for schools and universities. Investing in education is essential for preparing the next generation of leaders, entrepreneurs, and professionals who will contribute to the nation's growth. Moreover, education fosters a sense of national unity and pride, teaching young people about the importance of democratic principles, social cohesion, and respect for diversity. Similarly, Liberia's healthcare system is struggling to meet the needs of its population, particularly in rural areas where medical facilities are often understaffed and underfunded. The country's healthcare infrastructure was severely impacted by the Ebola outbreak and continues to face challenges in providing basic services. Improving healthcare is crucial for ensuring that all Liberians, regardless of their economic status, have access to quality medical care. A healthy population is essential for driving economic productivity and fostering long-term social stability. In the aftermath of this political crisis, it is imperative that Liberia's leaders recognize the importance of these sectors in building a sustainable and prosperous future. By investing in education and healthcare, Liberia can lay the foundation for a brighter tomorrow, one that will empower its citizens and help the country overcome the challenges it faces today. Youth and women, key drivers of political transformation. While political leaders and international institutions have a significant role to play in resolving Liberia's current crisis, the country's youth and women must be at the center of any political transformation. These groups represent the future of Liberia and are key to building a more inclusive, accountable, and sustainable democracy. The youth of Liberia are increasingly engaged in politics, using social media and other platforms to express their views, advocate for change, and hold leaders accountable. Their involvement in the democratic process is essential for shaping the future direction of the country. Political leaders must recognize the power of youth activism and support initiatives that encourage young people to become more involved in governance and decision-making processes. By providing mentorship, education, and opportunities for leadership, Liberia can ensure that its next generation is ready to tackle the challenges the country faces. Women, too, must be empowered to take on leadership roles and actively participate in the political process. Despite their significant contributions to the economy, society, and politics, women in Liberia remain underrepresented in positions of power. Ensuring greater gender equality and political participation will not only improve the quality of governance but also create a more inclusive society. Political reforms that promote gender equality and encourage the participation of women in leadership roles are crucial for Liberia's long-term democratic development. Looking toward Liberia's democratic future, the political crisis currently unfolding in Liberia is a crucial test of the country's democracy. While the challenges are significant, the opportunity for growth, reconciliation, and reform is equally substantial. Liberia stands at a crossroads, and the path it chooses in the coming months will define its future for generations to come. The solution to Liberia's crisis lies in the hands of its political leaders, civil society, the international community, and the citizens of the nation. By prioritizing national dialogue, addressing the underlying social and economic challenges, and fostering greater transparency and accountability, Liberia can overcome its current turmoil and build a democracy that is inclusive, resilient, and capable of meeting the needs of its people. Ultimately, Liberia's political future hinges on its ability to heal its divisions, rebuild its institutions, and create a society where all citizens, regardless of political affiliation, can live with dignity and hope. The path to this future will be long and difficult, but the steps taken now will determine whether Liberia can rise above this crisis and emerge as a beacon of democracy in West Africa. Strengthening Liberia's political institutions, a critical need for reform. As Liberia seeks a way forward from its current crisis, strengthening its political institutions will be one of the most crucial steps in preventing future instability. The House of Representatives must undergo significant reforms to ensure it operates with transparency, accountability, and the confidence of the Liberian people. One potential reform is the establishment of an independent ethics committee within the legislature, tasked with overseeing the conduct of lawmakers and addressing issues of corruption, conflict of interest, and abuse of power. Such a committee would provide a check on the power of elected officials and ensure that they are held accountable for their actions. Additionally, ensuring that leadership positions within the House, such as the Speaker and committee chairs, are filled through transparent and merit-based processes would go a long way in restoring public trust in the legislative branch. Moreover, the role of the judiciary in maintaining checks and balances must be reinforced. The judiciary has a critical role in upholding the rule of law, especially in cases of political disputes. Strengthening judicial independence and ensuring that judges are protected from political interference would help safeguard Liberia's democracy. Creating a more robust and transparent judicial system will also improve the confidence of the public and international partners in Liberia's legal system. Addressing corruption in Liberia's public sector. Corruption remains one of Liberia's most significant challenges and a core driver of the political instability that the country is facing today. The fire at the Capitol and the subsequent power struggle within the House of Representatives highlight the pervasive nature of corruption in Liberia's political system. Corruption not only undermines public trust in political institutions, but also diverts essential resources away from critical sectors such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure. To tackle corruption effectively, Liberia must strengthen its anti-corruption agencies and ensure that they operate independently. The Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission, LACC, must be given the necessary tools, resources, and legal backing to investigate and prosecute corrupt officials at all levels of government. Furthermore, laws governing campaign financing and political donations should be revised to ensure transparency and prevent the undue influence of money in politics. Creating an environment where corruption is not tolerated will require a cultural shift at every level of society. Citizens must feel empowered to report unethical practices, and there must be consequences for those who engage in corrupt activities. The government should encourage public participation in anti-corruption initiatives, working alongside civil society organizations, the media, and international partners to create a culture of accountability. Liberia's role in regional stability and cooperation. Liberia's political stability is not only important for the country itself, but also for the broader West African region. As a member of ECOWAS, Liberia plays a key role in maintaining regional stability, and the current political crisis threatens to undermine this position. If Liberia is unable to resolve its internal issues peacefully, it could set a troubling precedent for other nations in the region that are dealing with similar challenges. Liberia has long been a leader in advocating for peace in the region, having been at the forefront of peacekeeping efforts during the Liberian Civil War and serving as a member of ECOWAS peacekeeping missions in neighboring countries like Côte d'Ivoire and Guinea. Now Liberia must turn inward and ensure that its own democratic processes are functioning properly. This crisis could also serve as an opportunity for Liberia to strengthen its relationship with regional bodies such as ECOWAS and the African Union. Regional organizations can provide valuable assistance in facilitating dialogue, promoting peace, and fostering cooperation between political factions. Liberia's role in helping stabilize other nations has earned it a certain level of respect and influence, and by resolving its own political crisis, it can further solidify its standing as a stabilizing force in West Africa. A clear path for economic diversification and sustainable development. For Liberia to emerge from this crisis stronger and more resilient, it must focus on long-term strategies for economic diversification and sustainable development. Liberia's economy has traditionally been heavily reliant on natural resources, particularly rubber, timber, and mining. While these sectors remain vital, they are also susceptible to global commodity price fluctuations and environmental challenges. To build a more resilient economy, Liberia must focus on diversifying its economic base. This means investing in sectors such as agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, and technology. With its vast agricultural potential, Liberia could become a regional leader in the production of crops like rice, cassava, and cocoa. Similarly, the development of Liberia's tourism industry, by capitalizing on its rich cultural heritage and pristine beaches, could offer new avenues for growth and employment. In addition, Liberia must prioritize environmental sustainability. As climate change continues to pose challenges to the region, particularly in agriculture, the government should work with international partners to implement climate-resilient strategies. This includes promoting sustainable land management practices, enhancing water security, and investing in renewable energy. Creating a diversified and sustainable economy will require significant investment in infrastructure, education, and skills development. Liberia's youth must be equipped with the tools and knowledge needed to participate in the modern workforce, whether through technical education, vocational training, or higher education. By prioritizing education and skills development, Liberia can create a workforce capable of driving economic growth in a range of industries. Restoring confidence in Liberia's electoral system. The upcoming elections in Liberia will serve as a critical test for the country's democratic system. In recent years, Liberia has made progress in strengthening its electoral process, but there is still room for improvement. The political crisis in the House of Representatives and the suspicions surrounding the arson attack have called into question the fairness and transparency of the country's electoral institutions. Reforming Liberia's electoral system is essential to restoring public trust and ensuring that future elections are free, fair, and credible. One of the key areas of reform should be strengthening the independence of the National Elections Commission, NEC. The NEC must have the autonomy to conduct elections without interference from political parties or government officials. Furthermore, the Commission should be adequately resourced to carry out its mandate effectively, including the ability to monitor voter registration, campaign financing, and the conduct of elections. In addition to strengthening the NEC, Liberia should also focus on improving voter education. Many Liberians are still unfamiliar with the electoral process, and voter apathy remains high, particularly among young people. Increased efforts to educate citizens about their rights and responsibilities will encourage greater participation in the electoral process and help ensure that elections reflect the true will of the people. International support, a balanced approach. Liberia's international partners must continue to offer support, but this support must be both strategic and respectful of Liberia's sovereignty. While international aid and expertise are essential, it is important that Liberia retains ownership of its own democratic process. The international community should focus on providing technical assistance, facilitating dialogue, and supporting Liberia's efforts to implement democratic reforms. International organizations like ECOWAS, the UN, and the World Bank can provide vital resources and expertise in areas such as governance, peace-building, and economic development. However, their role should be one of support, rather than intervention. Liberia's leaders, both political and civil, must be the ones to drive the reform process. This will ensure that the reforms are sustainable and truly reflect the needs and aspirations of the Liberian people. By balancing external assistance with internal ownership, Liberia can create a system that is accountable, transparent, and capable of addressing the challenges it faces both today and in the future. Liberia's opportunity for transformation. Liberia stands at a critical crossroads, and how the country responds to its current political crisis will determine its future trajectory. The political, economic, and social challenges are immense, but they are not insurmountable. With commitment from its leaders, collaboration from civil society, and support from the international community, Liberia can emerge from this crisis with stronger democratic institutions, a more diversified economy, and a renewed sense of national unity. The next steps for Liberia must focus on resolving the political deadlock, strengthening institutions, addressing corruption, and laying the foundation for sustainable economic growth. By investing in education, healthcare, and infrastructure, and by ensuring that all Liberians, particularly the youth and women, have a voice in shaping the future, Liberia can create a more inclusive, democratic society. This crisis is a defining moment for Liberia, but it is also an opportunity for transformation. Liberia must seize this moment to build a future that is peaceful, prosperous, and rooted in democratic principles. The road ahead will be challenging, but with leadership, unity, and commitment, Liberia can overcome its current difficulties and emerge stronger and more resilient than ever before. A long-term vision, Liberia's role in shaping a new African political culture. As Liberia grapples with its current challenges, it is important to recognize that the nation's journey towards stability and prosperity is not only about its internal politics and governance, but also about setting an example for the broader African context. Liberia's experiences, both during and after its civil war, have shaped the country in profound ways. However, its ongoing struggles with governance and political stability offer a unique opportunity for reflection on Africa's broader political culture. Liberia, with its rich history and potential, can serve as a beacon of hope for other African nations facing political instability. The country's ability to overcome this crisis and move forward in a constructive, democratic manner could provide valuable lessons to other African countries that are also experiencing political or economic turmoil. In a continent where many countries are still wrestling with political fragility, Liberia's path forward must include efforts to promote peace, foster democratic practices, and advocate for institutional reforms. As Liberia pursues democratic reform and economic growth, it must continue to engage with regional organizations like ECOWAS and the African Union, both of which can help guide the country toward lasting peace. These regional bodies have a responsibility to monitor Liberia's progress, encourage dialogue among political factions, and help mediate any future conflicts. Liberia must also leverage the strength of its diaspora, which remains a vital force for political, economic, and social change. Advice to African leaders: the importance of fostering democratic governance and accountability. The current crisis in Liberia offers valuable lessons for African leaders, particularly regarding the importance of transparency, accountability, and inclusivity in governance. African nations must learn to value democratic processes, invest in strong institutions, and ensure that political struggles do not lead to violence or instability. The ability to peacefully resolve leadership disputes is a cornerstone of democracy, and the use of dialogue and negotiation is vital in preventing escalation. Leaders across the continent must focus on building strong, resilient institutions capable of withstanding political challenges. This means ensuring that legislative bodies are independent, judicial systems are impartial, and executive powers are exercised with respect for the law. Political leaders must also prioritize the welfare of their citizens, addressing pressing issues such as unemployment, poverty, and inequality, which can often fuel political unrest. It is crucial for African leaders to recognize that true leadership is about serving the people and upholding democratic values, rather than simply seeking power. A commitment to upholding the rule of law, fostering political pluralism, and ensuring transparency in governance will go a long way in strengthening Africa's democratic foundations. Additionally, leaders should encourage civic participation, empowering citizens to engage in the political process, thereby building stronger societies. Summary of key messages. The political crisis in Liberia represents a significant challenge but also an opportunity for transformation. To ensure a brighter future, Liberia must prioritize the restoration of democratic governance through reforms that strengthen political institutions, improve transparency, and foster national unity. The country must also invest in economic diversification and sustainable development, focusing on youth empowerment, education, and healthcare. For African leaders, Liberia's struggles and the lessons learned from this crisis offer important insights. Strengthening democratic institutions, resolving conflicts peacefully, and ensuring accountability and governance are essential steps for building resilient political systems across the continent. Liberia's path forward can serve as a model for other African nations, showing that even in times of crisis, there is an opportunity to rebuild, reform, and create a better future for all citizens. In conclusion, Liberia's journey through this crisis will require leadership, collaboration, and a deep commitment to democratic values. If Liberia can rise above the challenges of its political impasse, it will not only secure a more stable future for its citizens, but also contribute to the broader goal of fostering political maturity and democratic governance throughout Africa. African leaders must heed the lessons from Liberia's crisis and focus on strengthening institutions, ensuring political stability, and prioritizing the needs of the people to secure a prosperous and peaceful future for the continent. Thank you for watching. If you found this analysis insightful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the Bold African Voice, BAV. We want to hear your thoughts on Liberia's political crisis and the future of democracy in Africa. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update and join us again next time for more critical analysis on Africa's most pressing issues. Until then, stay bold, stay informed,